Morning, gents. Today is the day we talk about NAT. So we're going to take your 7M GE and go GTE. It's kind of the route everybody seems to want to go when they're NA. So we're going to go over the basics, bare bones basics. This will translate to like a 2JZ GE going turbo as well. They're very, very similar. Apply the same principles if you have an NA 2JZ in your car. I made a little list because I'm forgetful and I just seem to randomly rant on things and then leave 4 other things out. So the first thing I want to touch on is, okay, most of these cars have, let's say 150,000 miles on them, maybe 120 plus easily, right? So they've developed some leaks. Now's the time to buy your engine gasket set. Just get the whole thing. It'll come for the turbo engine, of course, if you want to go NAT. All the gaskets are the same. It's just going to include turbo gaskets from the manifold to the turbo and turbo to the downpipe. These are expensive to buy alone if you buy them from eBay or something like that. So get that gasket kit. The entire gasket kit honestly comes with new valve seals even. So which kind of leads me to my next thing is if the head gasket isn't done, now's the time. Have the head decked, make sure the blocks, borderline mirror finish, give that head gasket the best chance at sealing and at life. Have the machine shop install the new valve seals when they do the when they deck it, and make sure your head's good and reusable. Now, the head gaskets, it's a stopper type, okay? You can go with a larger one. I think HKS makes the largest one, or Titan Motorsports still might have some available. They're 2mm. Rumored to be just rebranded HKSs. So stopper type, 2mm, ARP studs, done. Now's the time to do your timing belt. I know that most of your cars have leaks, because mine has leaks. So just get that whole kit. Pull the motor if you have the means. I strongly recommend it. Front seal, oil pump drive seal, rear seal, new pan gasket, and weld the motors out. Get an AZ Performance oil pickup tube. Just replace the factory crush bent tube. It's super easy to do. It's 2 bolts or 3 bolts. Once you have the pan off, you'll see it immediately. Just the factory pickup, oil pickup it's crush bent for one. But it's also, it has banjo fittings on it. I mean, it's a massive choke point for oil. Now's the time to replace that. Those are the 2 things with the 7M, is the oil pickup tube and the head gasket. I mean, obviously, while it's apart and you have the motor out, I hope most of you go that route. You could shim the oil pump for a little extra oil pressure. Not necessarily required, but you could at that time too. Now, the differences between the GE and the GTE blocks are, for the GE, lack of oil squirters and lack of a turbo feed and drain. They're not bunged or studded for your drain. So I'm going to show you right now what basically a GE block looks like and what you're missing. Okay, so here's a GE block. So as you can see, this is where your drain should be, your turbo drain from factory, and your feed is here. So the GE blocks have none of that. As you can see, they're completely cast over. So there would be 2 studs here and your drain, and then there'd just be a threaded fitting here, a banjo bolt with 2 copper washers for your feed. So that's gone. That's the difference between the GTE and the GE block, as well as there is no oil squirters. Aside from that, it's all the same. Okay, so now that you know what you're missing on a GE block, the solution is to steal oil pressure from your oil pressure sending unit for the feed and drill and tap your factory oil pan for a drain. Drift Motion sells a kit for this. I think it's like 129 bucks. Don't quote me on the price. Could be a little bit less even. I haven't really looked, but I know they have one on there. It's a soft line kit for NAT. So that's your solution for that. Now, you do have higher compression. Even with a 2mm head gasket, it's still going to be higher compression. So just know you're limited on boost and you're limited on ignition timing. On your factory ignition timing, you could probably get away with a nice, as long as the your fuel setup's kind of fat and you're probably like pegging 11.0 wide open throttle on factory boost, like 5 or 6 pounds, you should be okay with that on premium fuel. Any more than that, you're going to want to bump down ignition timing, probably 2 degrees, I'd probably say. If you want to run 10 pounds, 10 to 11 pounds, I'd take 2 degrees out of it for sure, and still make sure it's pegging 11.0 wide open throttle. That's kind of like, no matter what, you're just limited. Their cast pistons are a little higher compression. They're soft. They're fragile, right? So I mean, don't test their limits. You'll lose. I mean, I promise you, you'll lose. Okay, your turbo setup. Sorry if I'm looking at my list here. I'd recommend just going factory stuff, right? It's a little bit cheaper. These items are basically throwaway items. Your cast exhaust manifold, CT26 or equivalent. I know CX Racing sells their own version of the CT26, and honestly, not bad reviews on relatively low boost. So if you don't have a good local to you CT26 available for sale, you can entertain that option. Downpipe, I don't recommend the equivalent. I don't recommend using the factory downpipe. I will recommend using an equivalent aftermarket for 2 reasons. There's no cats. These cars have 2 cats in the downpipe. Factory turbo elbow isn't there as well in your aftermarket unit. So get the one that doesn't require your factory turbo elbow to be there. It's so restrictive. And I guess the third reason would be a wideband bung. They're all bunged for a wideband and your factory O2 sensor. So I'd strongly recommend that. Ultimately, you could get a cat back at the same time. I'm assuming probably most of you have one already, so just use what you got. That's cool. Intercooler, grab a factory one. They're throwaway items. They're cheap. For 10 to 12 pounds of boost, it's going to be just fine. You'll have no issues. Obviously, the GTE intake manifold and throttle body arrangement's a little bit shorter, so you're going to have to trim your factory that top intake tube a little bit, just to make it work with your GE intake manifold, just being a little bit longer. I'm sure you guys will figure that out. Turbo accordion, don't quote me, it should work fine just with your factory airflow meter. No problem at all there. You're going to have some additional orifices to close up on that factory accordion hose. Definitely run an air filter. Don't not run an air filter on the end of that airflow meter. So that's basically your intercooler, intake, exhaust is done. What's left? You have your fuel setup. Okay, this is a subjective part of things. What I'd strongly recommend to do, and what's the right way to do things, just get a Walbro right now. Yes, if you want to be frugal, you can use your factory pump, probably to a maximum of the gate pressure on the CT26, 5 or 6 pounds. I wouldn't recommend any more. Again, it's probably older than most of us, or as old as most of us. That's, you know, it's seen better days. Fuel filter as well, change that right now. That's not even a thing. That's $2, just change it. But I strongly recommend you run a hot wire from your battery and a relay and put a Walbro in the tank. I would skip the 255 and just go with the 450. They slip in the hanger. You're gonna have no fitment issues. Super easy. And the next thing would be probably an adjustable fuel pressure regulator. no matter what, when you decide you want more power with a larger injector, you're going to need it anyway. So go ahead and get one of those. And a 440, factory known good 440cc injector, or a set of 550s from Facebook or the forums or anywhere you can get them. And adjust your fuel pressure accordingly just to make sure you're not washing out cylinder walls with fuel. And that's basically that. I mean, you can run your factory distributor and stuff like that. They seem to be pretty reliable into the 300 horsepower range. You shouldn't have any issues. One side note that I would recommend is you gap your plugs down probably to 0.22 or 2.3, something like that. The distributor is not the strongest spark in the world. Just give your spark plugs the best chance at life and igniting that fuel and air mixture in the cylinders. And then another thing, I guess if you're NA, so you probably have a W58 or are auto. If you're auto, fine. If you're W58, no, you are horsepower limited on that clutch. You are on borrowed time. No matter what, you will need to change it. So the transmissions, in my experience, have been pretty bulletproof till about 350 wheel horsepower, so you should be fine. Don't go crazy aggressive with your clutch, and don't put a super sticky tire on it, and it'll last. And that's basically it. So watch your boost, don't get greedy, watch your ignition timing, keep it safe, keep your fuel rich. You want to see 11.0 wide open throttle at any boost you decide to run in your car. Even dipping into the high 10s is okay, it's safe, and that's what you want with factory cast pistons. And your clutch. So, I mean, if you know your clutch is kind of on the way out, now's the time just to get it all done. Pull the motor, do the seals, do that oil pickup tube, head gasket, timing belt, throw it back in and go party. So that's just what comes to mind anyway. There's a lot more information out there. There's a lot on Facebook. There's a lot on the forums. So I hope this helped you guys out on your journey, your NAT journey. Something tells me you're not going to end it here. And I hope you don't, because there's plenty more where this list comes from. There's a lot of cool stuff you can do out there. Build something unique, something cool to you, and just get out there and have a good time. Cheers, guys.